Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this special pod/vodcast of the DDCA T20s coming up on the 7th of January. I'm Brent Wilson. I'm a video producer with GameFace who are doing some of the games this weekend, and joining me today is a young journalist who's already kicking a lot of goals early in his career, I guess you could say. Mitch Bourke, welcome.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks for having me on. Very kind introduction from you there, yeah.
So we've got 8 groups in this T20 competition, round robin, all taking place on the same day. So 3 matches, one after the other at 8 selected grounds. We might as well get straight into it. First up, we've got Doveton, Parkmore and Narre Warren at Robinson Reserve. Now, I'll be there with GameFace this weekend, streaming the first and third matches. So make sure you tune in for those ones just to see my best work. First up, Doveton versus Parkmore in the first match there at Robinson Reserve. Parkmore sitting in 6th at Turf 1 at the moment. They fell out of the first stage in 2019/20, which is the last T20 season there was. Doveton sitting in 5th in Turf 2. Mitch, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, well, with this group, I really like it because it's probably a very open group because you've got Narre who are relegated from Turf 1 and then Parkmore who are promoted to Turf 1. But anyway, onto this game. So Doveton versus Parkmore. I don't know, it's going to be a close one, really, because you've got Doveton who, they came up from Turf 3, didn't they? Into Turf 2.
Yes, they've been doing pretty well recently. They were middle table Turf 3 club and now they're pushed up to Turf 2, so...
Yeah, and I think I've got them sitting, you say 5th? Yeah, just outside the top 4. So, yeah, and I reckon Parkmore, well, they're in Turf 1. They've been struggling a bit, but I'd still back Parkmore in, obviously. Turf 1 is a bit of a jump from Turf 2.
Yeah, so Parkmore with that one. There you go. It's a big ground there at Robinson Reserve, so this is going to be an interesting set of matches, I think. I think there's a few other games at grounds that have smaller boundaries, but Doveton, one of the biggest ones, so we might not be seeing 2 high scores here. Parkmore versus Narre Warren is the second match of the day. Narre Warren in Turf 2 sitting at 4th, and as I said earlier, Parkmore in Turf 1, so this could be an interesting clash. Narre Warren were in Turf 1 not too long ago, so they've certainly got a fair bit of star power as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, because Narre, they got promoted for a season and then went back down to Turf 2. I think they've dropped off a bit now from where they were. But against Parkmore, I'd probably back Parkmore in again, to be honest. Like, they've recruited decently well and they're doing all right in Turf 1. So, yeah, back them in again. And they have knocked off St Mary's this year. Only 1 win, but it was against St Mary's. So, yeah, Parkmore again, I reckon.
There you go. So Parkmore by default win the group anyway, but Doveton versus Narre Warren's the third and final match of the day. What do you see that one going as?
Honestly, I reckon Doveton could be on for a cheeky upset over Narre Warren there. They've been doing well in Turf 2 because it's 4th v 5th in Turf 2, so that's a really close one. But I'd back Doveton in there.
There you go. So group pool 1, I guess. I think that's how it works. I'm not entirely sure about the pools, but it seems like that will go to Parkmore. All right. Second pool, Cranbourne, Hampton Park and Springvale South down there at Casey Fields. Cranbourne have their frog box set up there, so each of the 3 games, including the middle one, will be on frog box there. You can find that in MyCricket, whatever, however you find that stuff. Cranbourne versus Hampton Park's the first match. Cranbourne sitting in 6th in Turf 2. They reached the second stage of the T20 competition in 2019/20. They had a game earlier this season. I've got notes here saying that in the 28 over affair, they posted 8 for 126, and they were defeated by Parkfield 4 for 128 after 28. That was in round 3 when rain hit a lot of the games pretty hard, so maybe serves as a good indication of how Cranbourne are going at the moment.
Yeah, well, they were really everyone's pick to go up to Turf 1 last year, then got upset by HSD in the semi-finals. But they are a rich club with a rich history in like the top flight of the competition. So yeah, the 2 players I want to focus on for Cranbourne are the Sweeney brothers, who have returned recently. You got Peter Sweeney and Mick Sweeney. Peter Sweeney took home the Gartside medal last season with 554 runs, averaging like 79, which is ridiculous stuff. And they've both got like 60 to 80 games in first 11 at Dandenong. And they're getting old now, like 33, 35, but they'll be two very good players. And they're players that can like turn a game and still even that age win games off their own bat and ball. But Cranbourne versus Hampton Park, I'd say, yeah, speaking on those brothers, their experience will bring the win for Cranbourne because Hampton Park, struggling in Turf 3 a bit, won't really compete, I'd say.
They were not too recently in Turf 4 there, Hampton Park, so they're certainly not exactly a powerhouse there. Hampton Park versus Springvale South, again, this is probably an uneven matchup. Springvale South came first in Turf 1 at the moment, and they were runners-up in 2019/20. How is Springvale South going to shape up for this tournament?
They'd have to be the hot favourites, honestly. Reigning Turf 1 premiers, and they're undefeated now with a whopping percentage of 2.92. So, yeah, and also want to touch on recently in Turf 1, they picked a 117-run and 122-run wins against Buckley and Berwick, respectively, or probably two of the stronger Turf 1 teams. They're just smashing it. So I'd say they've got to be the favourites to win it. And, yeah, definitely will cruise past Hampton Park.
Now, there's a guy in their team who I like the look of as much as anything, Geordie Wyatt, and he seems to smack the ball all around the place and goes at a pretty hefty strike rate, so he's certainly one to watch for that match. And then finally, it all comes down to Cranbourne versus Springvale South in the third match of the day at 3:30 or 2:30, sorry. Who have you got for that one?
Yeah, well, like I said, Cranbourne, I reckon they'll give them a little bit of a push, definitely more of a push than Hampton Park, but Springvale South will just be far too good for Turf 2 teams.
Well, there you go. So Springvale South through and Parkmore through in the first two groups we've gone through. I'm not sure how the quarters and semis work, but there's a good chance that Parkmore will end up playing Springvale South in round 2, which is the 17th of January, apparently. Lindale, HSD and North Dandenong at Barry Power Reserve. Now, this ground is fairly small and we've seen some massive totals there, so this could be a really exciting one. And this is also a GameFace live stream. I won't be there at that one, but there is going to be some live coverage of the first match and the third match. The first match, Lindale versus HSD. Lindale sitting fairly pretty at second in Turf 2 and HSD right behind them third in Turf 2. So this could be a very red hot match.
Yeah, well, they actually met recently on the 10th of December, Lindale and HSD. And that day, Lindale prevailed by 74 runs. Surya and Silva took 6 for 41. So I'd say, based off the form guide, they'd back Lindale in to win again. But another group I really like here, because you've got a weaker Turf 1 side in North Dandy and then two of the really strong Turf 2 outfits in Lindale and HSD. So it should be a really good contest. And it's interesting to see how like the lower Turf 1 and higher Turf 2 teams match up against each other. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
So as I said, the ground's pretty high scoring. There was a game between Lindale and Keysborough a few weeks ago in round 5. Keysborough batted first, made 234-44, which is quite a big total. But Lindale chasing it down in 21.3 overs. 3 for 235 in 21.3 overs at Barry Power Reserve. A century to Gullhead Edge Don with 5 fours, 12 sixes. It was earlier reported on My Cricket that he scored that off 29 balls, but it has since been removed off My Cricket, so there's no way of telling if that was just spammed in for no apparent reason. But there's something to be said about this ground and specifically Lindale at their home ground. All right, next up is North Dandenong versus HSD. North Dandenong sitting pretty well at the moment in Turf 1 in 4th position. They've defeated Berwick and Narry South, so they're doing pretty well, and they made the quarterfinals in 2019/20 of the T20 competition, so certainly they're going to be quite hard to beat.
Yeah, well, HSD, one of the stronger Turf 2 sides, they kind of, I remember last year, at this point last year, they were like out of finals, like struggling a bit. Then they really came home strong, knocked off Cranny, which was huge, and ended up falling like in the last over to Parkmore in that famous Turf 2 final last year. So I reckon they could definitely push North Dandy, but the way North Dandy are playing, to be 4th in Turf 1, because they've usually just been sitting 7th, like just avoiding relegation every year, it feels like. So they've stepped it up a bit this year. I reckon they'll be too strong for HSD. HSD do have some really good players. Like you got Trion De Silva, I really like. He's second in the runs, 6 in the wickets in Turf 2 last year. So they'll push him. That'll be a really good game, but I think North Dandy will just pip him.
Now I'm going to bring up another stat that's going to probably blow everyone's minds. A player from North Dandenong this season scored 301 in a Sunday competition match in 40 overs.
Who's that?
Javed Khan. So, yeah, a lot of runs there. 24 fours and 30 sixes in one innings. And yeah, as I said, 40 overs. Their team scored 3 for 487, the Melbourne Eagles. So that's certainly another player to watch out for coming up in this T20 competition. So finally, Lindale versus North Dandenong. Lindale and North Dandenong, you've got 2 wins, one win for each of them so far. Who do you think is going to go through?
So this is the decider. I think North Dandy would just be too good again because you can't really look past their form in Turf 1. And they've also got a player here, Ramneet Dinsda. I have to excuse the pronunciation, but he's been averaging 36 with the bat, 6 in the Turf 1 runs, and he's got a long history of playing Premier First with Kingston Hawthorn. So some good quality there at North Dandy, and I think that'd just be too good for Lindale.
Yeah, they're doing all right in the Saturday competitions as well, so it's good to see that they're flexing their muscles. All right, Silverton, Lynbrook and Berwick at Fotheringham Reserve. Another group that's probably a bit unfairly skewed towards one team, having one team in Turf 1 and 2 Turf 3 teams. But the first match is Silverton, Lynbrook, both sitting in Turf 3. Lynbrook second in Turf 3 at the moment. Silverton 6th in Turf 3. Lynbrook progressed to the second stage of the T20 competition in 2019/20, whereas Silverton failed to reach that. So who have you got for this one?
Yeah, well, they're both like kind of Turf 3, but I'd say Lynbrook, they're in that battle for, where'd you say they were on the ladder?
Second,
yeah. And there's the 3 teams on that bracket of second, but second in Turf 3, and you've got Silverton down a bit more. I'd say Lynbrook would just be the stronger team.
Silverton do have the home ground advantage here at Fotheringham Reserve, so that could play into effect here. Good. So we'll see how that one ends up. Berwick versus Lynbrook is the second match. As I said, heavily skewed towards Berwick realistically here. They're 5th in Turf 1. They've had a pretty ordinary season in Turf 1, to be fair, but there is certainly a bit of a quality difference between Turf 1 and Turf 3, so that's something you have to look out for.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Berwick, they've been a real finals mainstay in years gone by and a real powerhouse of Turf 1. Like, they took it home in that COVID year, I know. But recently, I think the club's just lost a lot of depth, and now they're really struggling. Their ones are a lot weaker than it has been. So they've been blessed in this T20 comp with 2 Turf 3 teams in Lynbrook and Silverton. So you'll see them move through comfortably still. But yeah, they're not the powerhouse they once were, I'd say, Berwick. And it's interesting to see if they make the finals this year. And another thing too, Matt Chasemore, I know he's playing Turf 4 with his son Callum. Obviously a legend, like Premiership captain at Berwick, Premiership captain at Cranbourne. Done a lot, but he's come back into Turf 1 recently. So interesting to see if he plays in these T20s, because he would be a big value and big addition for Berwick.
Yeah, he's certainly one of those great stars of the DDCA and all that he's done over the years, and certainly someone that you'd probably pay to watch almost out of anyone in the DDCA just to see and go about it. I'll look back again, round 3, 27 over affair against Buckley Ridges. Buckley Ridges posted 9 for 181 and Berwick fell to 165 and 25.1, similar sort of overs to T20. Lockie Brown scored 44 of 34 with 3 fours and 2 sixes, was the main notable innings, I guess, there. But yeah, they fell to Buckley Ridges in that match, as they have done to North Dandenong and a few other teams as well. And then finally, Silverton, Berwick. Silverton have the home ground advantage, but Berwick have the class advantage. I'm pretty sure I can predict that you'll go for Berwick there.
Yeah, definitely Berwick. And another player I want to touch on who could be someone to watch is Geordie Cleland. He's only averaging 18 this year, and he's captaining Berwick this year, but he's put together some great innings at Turf 1 level. He's scored a few 90s, and most notably, a few years back in 1920 season, which was at the last year the T20s happened before.
Yes,
COVID. Yeah. So last T20 comp, he put 133 against Narry South. So Geordie Cleland, someone to keep an eye on. He's always good for like a 20 or 30. Doesn't go on with them that much, but if he does, he can be really damaging. So yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. So Berwick go through with that. I guess, as you said, blessed a bit with the draw they've got. I'm not quite sure how they decided it, whether they were just picking balls out of a lottery machine or something like that, just figuring out who they played. But anyway, that's that one. Keysborough, Springvale, and Dandenong West. So a few lower ranked teams in this group here. Keysborough and Springvale is the first game. Keysborough in 8th in Turf 2. They came up not last season, but the season before from Turf 3. Springvale is 5th in Turf 3, and they managed to qualify for the second stage of the 2019/20 T20 tournament. What do you have here?
Yeah, well, another thing I like about this group is I like the groups with the lower teams because we're going to see them get a chance to progress to the quarterfinals. And you've got Danny West, who I really rate, and they're the strongest outfit in Turf 3. Then you go down, you've got Keysborough, who are struggling bottom of Turf 2, and then Springvale again, who are sitting just outside the finals in Turf 3. So we're going to see a lower team progress. But who was the first game, sorry?
Keysborough versus Springvale.
Keysborough versus Springvale. I'd say Keysborough, just purely for the fact they're in Turf 2 and probably a little bit more there, but they are struggling, so that should be a really good game.
Yeah. I should mention that all the matches we've gone through so far, the first match is at 9:30 a.m, the second match is at 12, the third match is at 2:30. There is one game or one group later on that I'll talk about which has done things a little bit differently, which will be exciting to see. But there you go, Keysborough for the first match, Springvale versus Dandenong West for the second. Now, Dandenong West, I guess the big story there is that they've got two world-class internationals who are still carrying that team, I guess you could say, in Nulan Kulasekara and then also Malinga Bandara. So they're certainly someone to watch out for in the T20s.
Yeah, Danny West, I've got them getting through this group because, so Springvale up against pretty comfortable win, I'd say, because you look at them now, they've got, like you touched on, Bandara and Kulasekara. And Kulasekara, who was once the world's #1 ranked ODI bowler. So to think that he's running around in Turf 3 is just mind-blowing. But anyway, yeah. And Bandara. So him and Bandara, they've both got 9 wickets at like 8 and 13 respectively. So they're doing very well. And I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, probably 2018-19, St. Bridget St. Louis from like 7th in Turf 2 won the comp and knocked off all the powerhouses. So if any team is to replicate that like miracle run, I'd say it's Danny West.
Yeah, Dandenong West looking very good with, I guess you said, those internationals. I'm going off memory here, but I think Kulasekara scored a century off 60 balls in one match earlier in the season. So that's a very good T20 innings. So we'll go with Dandenong West for that one. And Keysborough versus Dandenong West, well, yeah. Keysborough are the team ranked higher by virtue of what they play on Saturday competition, but Dandenong West will go through, says Mitch Bourke. Quote that one. So there you go. That's how many through are we? We're 5 through. So at this stage, based on my reckoning, Parkmore plays Springvale South in the next round. North Dandenong plays Berwick in the next round, and then Dandenong West will play one of Parkfield, Berwick Springs, or Fountain Gate, another sort of lowly ranked competition. Parkfield versus Berwick Springs is the first game. Now this is exciting. This is the game that is being timed a bit differently. The first one is at 1 p.m. The second one's at 3:30 p.m. But the big one, under floodlights, I believe, is Parkfield versus Fountain Gate at 6 p.m. on that Saturday. So that will be certainly one to get down to and one to watch because, that would be exciting to see. But first up, it is Parkfield versus Berwick Springs. Parkfield sitting in 7th in Turf 2. They reached the quarterfinals of the T20 competition in 2019/20. I've also got here their 28-over performance against Cranbourne, in which they posted 128 and they were able to defend that in round 3. And then Berwick Springs 8th in Turf 3, not doing too great. They only reached stage 1 of the T20 competition in 2019/20. So Parkfield at home should be getting that one done, do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Just by virtue, they actually pretty much got the worst, or no, not the worst. Parkfield is 7th, but they have the worst percentage in Turf 2. It's like 0.5. So you got Parkfield bottom of Turf 2, Berwick Springs bottom of Turf 3. Just by virtue of being in Turf 2, you'd say Parkfield.
Yeah, and then, second game is Berwick Springs versus Fountain Gate. Fountain Gate sitting in 4th, Turf 3, only reached stage 1 of the T20s in 2019/20. So will Berwick Springs be able to get that one done?
I think so. I think Fountain Gate will be too strong for them.
There you go. And finally, for the third match, as I said, at 6 p.m, get down to Parkfield Reserve if you're around the area. Parkfield versus Fountain Gate. Who will go through this group is this match deciding.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting game there because you've got, again, like a team up there in Turf 3 and a team struggling at the bottom of Turf 2. And it's just interesting to see how the lower ranked teams compare to the higher ranked teams. But I know, whose home ground is that? Is it anyone's home ground?
So it is at Parkfield.
Okay. I reckon just off the home ground advantage, under lights, bit of hype, I reckon Parkfield will go through.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a Turf 2 team going through, but I don't reckon Fountain Gate will go down without a fight. So
definitely.
There's that. Hallam, Beaconsfield and St Mary's. I'm a Beaconsfield player and I think we've been a bit stitched up here because we got 2 Turf 1 teams as a Turf 2 team. Hallam, Clara Park sitting in second in Turf 1. Beaconsfield first in Turf 2 in the first match of this 3-match round robin. In the 28 over match earlier in the season, Hallam, Clara Park made 5 for 144 versus Narry South, who made 8 for 138. Geordie Hammond, 84 off 64, 4 4s, 6 6s. There's some big guys in that Hallam Clara Park team, so we might be seeing plenty of 6s and exciting stuff like that in this first match.
Yeah, so who's it, Hallam and Beaky in the first game?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, well, you said you're a Beaconsfield player. What have you got to give us about Beaky? Give us some intel on the players to watch.
I've got nothing much to say apart from traditionally they've been not very good at T20s. I think there's certainly some quality in the team, but they haven't generally been able to deliver in T20s. But there is a new coach there, Mark Cooper, who's been a journeyman, gone to every club in Victoria, it seems like, and he's really turned around the fortunes, at least on the Saturday competition. They haven't made too many personnel changes, but he's certainly delivered some confidence or something like that that's helped them to sit first in Turf 2. So Beaconsfield, I don't think can win this one, but they will certainly have a go.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because, Beaconsfield, cream of the crop in Turf 2 this season. Their percentage is 2.34, which is more than double the next best team. So that could cause some upsets if anyone's going to do it. But I think Hallam will be too strong in this one because they're killing in Turf 1. They won the Turf 1 flag like 2 years ago. I really like Hallam, just consistent overachievers. Like, they're not throwing out the same money.
Yeah.
Have Berwick, Springy, South, Buckley. But they just get it done. So, yeah, Hallam for me in this one.
Yeah, Hallam there in the first game. St Mary's versus Beaconsfield is the second match. St Mary's sitting last in Turf 1, perhaps unluckily. Narry South are also with them as one of the cellar dwellers in that competition. So this could be a very tight contest.
Yeah, well, with Beaconsfield going so well, and St Mary's, they're really struggling, and they're traditionally like a bottom of the rung team in Turf 1. So I reckon Beaconsfield could be on for an upset here to knock off St Mary's. They've got a few good players. I saw Tyler Clark's leading the runs in Turf 2, averaging over 50. And they've also got Ashan Madashankar averaging 40 plus as well. So a few good players from Beaky there doing well in Turf 2. St Mary's, they have had a new coach come in, I believe. Not sure if he's head coach, but helping out at least is Susantha Pradeep, who's come from Endeavour Hills. And he's bowling tidy little medium paces that could be difficult to get away on the softer wickets. I saw he's taking a
Would you say Frawley Road, which is where these matches are taking place, is a big ground?
Honestly, Frawley Road, let me think. Is that Hallam?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Hallam. I've watched a few games there. I'd say it's just in between, like not too small, not massive.
Yeah, well, in that Turf 1 grand final a couple of years ago, the outfield was very slow, so it sort of felt like a big ground that game. Beaconsfield is one of those teams that a few of their matches so far this season, they've defended 140s at home, especially at a big ground there. So they're certainly not going to be ones blowing other teams away, but they could certainly tie you down. So There you go. Beaconsfield gets the win in that one, according to Mitch. And then finally, Hallam versus St Mary's. Who have you got for that final match?
Well, I think just got to be Hallam, just too strong. But yeah, and another player to watch for Hallam is Sachith Jayasinger, he's got 16 wickets at 9.56 in Turf 1 right now. So he's killing it there. And St Mary's, the batsman to watch, Raveen Naniakara. He's shown he can go big. He scored 120 against Parkmore, but he hasn't really got going his other innings. There's probably more of a do or die player, I'd say. So it could be an interesting game that, but I think Hallam will get the job done.
So Hallam going through in this group. I should mention that Hallam's got their own Frogbox kit, so they'll be streaming the first and third matches. Not sure about the second one. So there's that. And then finally, we've got Buckley Ridges, Kimura, and Narry South at Park Oval. So a very small ground, and we're going to see sixes hit into the creek. We're going to see sixes hit onto the road. We're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff going on there at Park Oval in Dandenong. First up, I should say, is Buckley Ridges versus Kimura. Buckley Ridges won the T20 competition in 2019/20, and they're sitting third in Turf 1 at the moment. In that 27-over match against Berwick, I mentioned earlier, they made 9 for 181, so a very competitive total there. A few contributions from Michael Davies, 34 off 19, and Ben Watson, 25 off 15. So showcasing their hitting there, and then compared to Kumara, who are sitting third in Turf 3. Buckley Ridges, you'd think, would win that one, Mitch?
Yeah, comfortably. Well, you got a traditional Turf 1 powerhouse against a more lower Turf 3 side, although they're up in the finals contention in Turf 3 this year. But yeah, there won't be any match for Buckley, I'd say.
Buckley Ridges have a few international players who are probably a bit more familiar with the T20 format, I would argue, than these guys, because these guys only obviously play whenever they can. There's a few county players and all that kind of stuff who are knocking about in this. Buckley Ridges, they're star-studded Buckley Ridges side, so that will certainly bode well for them. Narry South versus Kimura in the second match. I've got some information that you probably weren't privy to, Mitch. I was at a T20 exhibition match between Narry South and Ferntree Gully on the 6th of December. They played an exhibition match, which I'm pretty sure is not on My Cricket, so you wouldn't find their stats anywhere else. They posted 7 for 168 in their first innings of that match. Harry Finch, the international from England, 54 off 41 there. They threw the batting order around a bit. In the Turf 1 Saturday competition, they've traditionally batted some guys like Ethan DeVries and Zach Wilson down the order while they put Kyle Hardy to open, whereas in this competition, Kyle Hardy dropped down to number 7, I believe, and Johnny Denner also came in at number 6, and they pushed a few of those younger players up there. So I do like the look of Narry South. They're not gone well in the Saturday competition, but they're young and exciting, and I think T20s is a different ball game.
Yeah, I really like Narry South. Obviously, traditionally since promoted, and they've done well, made finals twice, I think, in Turf 1, but struggling a bit this year. But 2 players I want to touch on. One you mentioned there is Jonty Jenner, who's returned. He was instrumental in getting the club promoted to Turf 2. I think that season he struck a 140 and a 160 in the year, which was 2018-19. So he's killing it, and he's back. He's got 30 T20 internationals under his belt for Jersey. Didn't even know it was a country, but take it. They're an associate ICC member. And an interesting fact about him I discovered today, he also subfielded once in the place of Stuart Broad in a test against South Africa. So he's one to keep an eye on. And the other one is Jivan Mendes, the Sri Lankan international. He's played in 2 World Cups, played 80 internationals, and even featured for the Sydney Sixers in the Big Bash about 10 years ago. And he's right now, I think he's only played 3 or 4 games, hasn't played every game, but he's 2nd in the runs and 3rd in the wickets in Turf 1. So he's killing it at the moment.
Yeah, so Narry South is Kumura. Who are you going for?
I'd say Narry South. Get the job done pretty comfortably there.
Yeah, there you go. I still am unsure whether Jeevan Mendes will turn up, though, because he wasn't there at that exhibition match. And yeah, as you said, he's only played 4 matches, so I'm not sure where he is half the time, but he's an enigma, I guess.
I hope he's there, and everyone watching would hope he's there as well, but we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, and then finally it's Buckley Ridges versus Narry South. The final match we'll go through here. Buckley Ridges powerhouse, but I like to look at Narry South, so this is going to be a very interesting affair.
Very, very good game. It's a real flip of the coin, this one, because like you said, you've got, if Jivan Mendes turns up for him, you've got him for Narry South, you've got Mahela Udawada for Buckley, who's represented Sri Lanka in every format. So to have players of that caliber running around in the DDCA is amazing. But honestly, Narry South will give him a real big push, but I think Buckley would just be too strong. I wanted to be different, say Narry South. I'm just going to go the boring pick and go Buckley. Yeah,
there you go. Well, I guess that small ground there at Park Oval, you probably can't predict too much, because one guy could just start hitting him really well for Narry South or Kimura even, and they could all of a sudden get a win out of nowhere. So that's certainly one to watch out for.
Yeah. Who do you have winning that game? Would you back Buckley as well, or do you reckon Narry South could upset them?
I'd like to back Narry South, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think yeah, Turf 1, they haven't been great, but there's a lot of young players, a lot of fresh, exciting faces, and they changed the order around in that match I saw against Fentree Gully. Fentree Gullyana, they play on synthetic competition, so it's not quite an even match, but they looked quite fresh and exciting. So I'd like to see Narry South win that one, so that'd be good. All right, so we've gone through each of the groups as we round out again. Parkmore in the first group go through according to Mitch. Cranbourne, Springvale South go through in the second group, and they likely play each other in a quarter final. North Dandenong in group 3, Berwick in group 4, Dandenong West in group 5, Parkfield in group 6, Hallam in group 7, and Buckley Ridges in group 8. So there you have it. We've gone through all the teams. Mitch, thank you for joining me. I know you've got your own T20 competition coming up soon, so good luck with that. And
hopefully I get selected.
Hope you get selected. There you go. And good luck this weekend as well, because you won't be able to watch any of these matches because you'll be playing, I believe.
Yes. So anyway, thanks for having me on. Good chat, and hopefully all the predictions come true. So yeah.